years that make it before the first seed sprouted. Before the first seed sprouted.
Oh, there's not even a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Here we go.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
My dear friend.
Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to introduce yourself because I could give you an introduction, but it would be a 2-hour-long novel. So I'll have you introduce yourself, and then I might chime in.
Okay. How would I introduce myself? My name is Shannon Lee. I am, I do many things. I'm an author. I'm a producer of film and TV. I am a podcaster.
Apparently.
I am the chairperson of the Bruce Lee Foundation, which is a public charity. I'm the CEO of the Bruce Lee Family Companies. And my dad is Bruce Lee. And my brother is Brandon Lee. And I'm Shannon Lee.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Actor.
Oh, yes. I've been an actor. I've been a singer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've done lots of things.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I admire so much about you is your willingness to accept whatever the universe throws at you. And be like, oh, yeah, I can make something out of that. We've known each other for 9 years.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I think it's been 10 years.
It's almost 10. It's just short of 10. Which is a long time. And we've both seen each other through a lot.
Of course, I would cough right then. He can edit this, right?
That's fine. We didn't edit anything. We're humans doing human things.
We are. We have seen each other through a lot.
Yeah. I obviously I didn't know you when there was a lot of chaos in your life.
You've known me through some chaos too.
I've known you through some chaos, but before that, you were really young when you lost your dad.
Yeah, 4.
Yeah. And so, the memories are piecemeal, really, probably.
Yeah, it's funny. I do have some memories of him, but as I've gotten older and healed myself more, actually more memories come back.
That makes sense. Yeah. And then how old were you when your brother passed?
He died right before my 24th birthday.
20. So, that's
20 years later.
Yeah, 20 years later. And so, one would think that your family was cursed.
Yes, many people do think that.
And all that I've seen is that you have taken agency and turned the tide on that.
100%.
And I'd love to hear you speak to what that means to you.
Sure. I think it's the work that I've done is work anyone and everyone can do. I think it's about healing your ancestral line, which is part of healing yourself. I think that, I could use the word curse if I wanted to. I tend not to, just because out in the public, people have a very narrow view of what that means. I have a broader view of what that means. And there's been some healing that has had to take place within my line, and I have taken on the task of doing that. And it's no small feat.
No.
And to a certain extent, we all have I guess it depends on your belief system, right? But we all have these rigid ideas about ourselves, about our families. We have things that are passed down to us genetically, emotionally, socially, epigenetically. If you believe in past lives, if you believe in ancestral trauma, we have all of that passed down to us as well.
Mhm.
It's a lot of things to
both in the linear and in the spiritual,
Yes. Yeah.
because
100%.
they're
And there are things that our soul has attempted to do throughout the course of its existence, which is eternal and infinite, that we at some point have to take responsibility and ownership of and attempt to heal
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
And that is, can be in the form of agreements that we've made, that our soul has made, and vows that our soul has taken over time
Mhm.
that no longer serve us in this moment, in this time.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And you stand and you make a different agreement, and you set a scene, you set a stage, and you put consciousness on it.
100%. And sometimes you need the help of others, to help break whatever that is. You
Mhm.
know, I have a whole group of people who are, friends who are working on themselves, energy healers, all these sorts of people who I'm feeling like, why do I feel so stuck? What's happening here? And as I keep an open mind and attempt to find the path appears.
Yeah, it's weird because growing up in LA in a very secular world,
Mhm.
the woo woo ha ha was always very like the thing you pointed at and kind of giggled
Mhm.
for me.
Sure.
And then I had that headache condition, and then I end up in medicine work, and oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What are we laughing at? And there's a thing, there's a in the Bhagavad Gita, there's the gunas, which is the modes of human nature.
Mhm.
And the modes of human nature are sattva being the highest mode of human nature, which is good for the sake of good.
Okay.
And rajas being the emotional part of human nature, the part that likes to go to sporting events to see who's going to win and hash it out, the guy who likes to make the deal. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then tamas would be what we would consider to be the sinner.
Okay.
Right.
Mhm.
And most of us live, it's a sliding scale, right? If you put like a
Sure.
thing. Yeah. So you're always in all of them. You have the capability to do all of them.
Yeah.
All of us.
Right.
So the whole thing, like, if you do a sin, you're a sinner. That's not the bullshit. That's just where you are in that moment.
Sure.
Most of us live primarily in the middle,
Mhm.
in the quid pro quo part of life.
The duality.
Right. In our culture in Los Angeles, it's probably center south.
Okay.
So there's a little bit of debauchery aligned with it. Yeah. Right. There's a little bit, I'm trying to get one over on someone, or I'm trying to, it's the business, right? They're trying to do it. When you see somebody in sattva, in that other place, you don't relate to it. And when you don't relate to something, it gives an opening to be bigoted against it, which is what happened for me.
Okay.
Because it didn't make sense.
Sure.
Because I grew up in that other, in that, well, if I go and help you and you don't help me,
right,
we have a problem.
Right.
It was never just, I'm helping you because I want to help.
Right. It's like you said, quid pro quo.
Right.
It's, I'm doing this so that I get something in return.
Right. So when I went into medicine work and it opened up this whole world, it was jarring.
Sure.
I mean, I had a lot of apologies to make.
Well, it's good that you saw that and took that action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because for a lot of people, that can be so jarring that they go, oh no, I can't. Stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You could recoil.
Yeah.
Now, for me, I didn't have a choice because the research with the particular kind of headaches that I had,
Yeah.
I was gonna go.
Yeah.
And also having a reference for this thing, because it doesn't feel, for me, it doesn't feel good to always be in conflict.
Sure.
For some people, maybe it does. It's just for me, it doesn't. I don't need to. I did.
Yeah.
I think it made me feel alive to rub up against something.
Sure. And there's a certain amount of familiarity with it. Sometimes when something is familiar, even if it's not a healthy pattern, you return to it because you know what it is.
That place.
Yep.
Yeah. So I would. So I was in a very, like, I was in a business that was all adversary. You know, I was running car dealerships and you know, playing the customers off of the dealership, off of this, and it was like juggling 12 balls and just always in anticipation of them all falling.
Yeah.
And it was horrifying. But I was so used to it, like you said, familiar. It was so familiar to me that I just was naturally gifted at it.
Was it horrifying to you at the time or in retrospect?
I would say that there's a large portion of humanity that's miserable and doesn't know it.
Yeah, 100%.
I was one of those.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I just didn't know.
I think we were all one of those at some point in our lives in one way or another and didn't know until you start to know.
Well, the problem is, and then when you know, you start to see.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of grieving for people that you grew up with or people that you know, and you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting joy out of constant complaining and bringing people into like the depths of where the complaint goes. Like, this is what brings you joy.
Well, the way
or comfort.
the way I like to look at it and our human suffering is that it's our way as human beings of trying to get love. I complain to you because I want you to have empathy for me
sure.
and show me love.
For sure.
You know,
and feel me.
And feel me
Right.
without understanding at some point, I'm going to be like, dude, the complaining.
Well, and also, you know, as you complain, as one complains, they create from the place that they're complaining.
Yes, of course.
And so they're creating more things to complain about.
More suffering.
And so, you know, and ultimately, life is a choice. You know, do you want to choose the half full or the half empty? Ultimately, it's a choice. And I think that there has been some kind of status in the negativity.
Sure. Yeah. I think people don't understand that there is a choice a lot of times. And, you know, part of that is there are things that happen to us in our lives, right? That, that we don't choose. Like, I didn't choose to have my brother die, right? I didn't choose that. That happened to me. But my response to that is my choice.
And how you internalize that.
Of course.
Happened to me, happened for me.
Yeah, sure. I think I could easily say it was both. Right.
Of course.
Yeah. And I think as human beings, we have to up our ability to hold paradox, because this life is full of paradox. It happened to me and it happened for me.
Yeah. I was talking to a guy who I'm starting coaching yesterday, and he said, I had 2 birthdays, the day I was born and the day my dad died. And I that really resonated with me.
Sure.
because if there's someone seeing you that's that powerful in your consciousness as a thing,
Mhm.
you're the thing. You're
Yeah.
going to live into that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which is why it's so important, like in partnership, for the partners to be meeting each other where they want to be met, not pointing out what's all the wrongs.
Yeah. Right.
Right. Pointing out the wrongs is just going to get you more wrongs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and if you think about it, we live our lives we calibrate our lives or think about our lives in terms of major events, right?
Mhm.
Like if I look at my life, it's like who I was when my dad died versus who I was when my brother died versus who I was when my daughter was born
Mhm.
versus who I was when I got married,
For
when
sure.
I got divorced, when when COVID happened,
Mhm.
when,
The
right?
moments in time.
And
Yeah.
those are all in some ways birthdays because they shift you
Huh.
in a profound way,
Mm-hmm.
right?
I can see that. I'm here for that.
Mhm.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
What's interesting that I have always known about you, and it was the same for your dad. And your dad. I didn't know your brother in that way, but your dad is known as a philosopher, as a knower of things,
Mm-hmm.
and you have that gift.
Mm.
And it's wild because I've been told I have that gift, and so you and I get together and we get a soup going and we just start, and it just starts happening. When did you recognize that you had that thing that your dad has?
I think it took me a really long time.
Because when I met you, it wasn't there.
No. In fact, when you first met me, I was complaining.
Yes, you were.
About the weight of being Bruce Lee's daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
You were not only complaining, you were hiding.
100%.
We weren't allowed to know that you were Bruce Lee's daughter until
I felt comfortable.
Comfortable enough to say it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that might have been a birthday for you.
Totally. Yeah. Well, I think it's, that whole trajectory, because it's something I'm always in relationship with, being Bruce Lee's daughter, whatever that means. But I would say it took me doing a lot of personal work on myself. I would say I first entered the realm of being a seeker and trying to heal myself probably in around 1999, 98, somewhere, 97, 99, 2000, somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
But then as that goes, you do a little work and then you start to feel better and then you kind of like
drop off. As it goes. For most people, yeah.
Yeah. And then I started doing more work in earnest in 2014, which is when we met.
Mm-hmm.
And I was still dealing with a lot of wounding around that time. And we started I started doing this medicine work and that sort of set me on a trajectory to want to do more personal work for myself. Mm-hmm. And I would say it probably took another, I'm really bad with dates, but several years to get to a place where I was comfortable. I started the Bruce Lee podcast. It was probably like 2015 or 16 that I started the podcast. And through talking about my father's philosophies, that really started to unlock me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Because it hits the little charm in you that you're like, oh, wait.
Yeah. I often tell people, I'm like, where my dad and I meet, like where we are the same person is in the philosophy and in the personal work. Yeah. Like I've done martial arts, but I'm never going to be a martial artist like him. That's not my thing. Yeah. But the philosophy is my thing. I love it.
Yeah, I get that. And your dad's philosophy are timeless. Like there's no like they're like they bring true. I mean, they are spot on
Yeah.
every time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, any kind of, I mean, a lot of his philosophies are based on ancient philosophies like Taoism,
Mhm,
you know?
mhm.
And so what's true is true.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, for sure. For sure. It's like when you, it's like, but we've talked about this a lot. After I had my first ego death, and I went over to the other side, and I'm getting all this information. It's like drinking water through a fire hose. It's like, oh my God. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, okay. Wait. It's like aha moment after one after that. Right? And then I come out and I go to sit with Natalie, and this was right before the pandemic.
Okay.
And she says, I want you to, of course it's her. She says, I want you to listen to the Bhagavad Gita.
Mm.
I said, great.
Mhm.
And so I listened to an audio recording of it. And I was like, yeah, this is all the shit I was doing. This is it. I already know all this.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that it's all kind of just there. They say there isn't a handbook for being human, and I actually don't think it's true. I think there are a lot of handbooks. We just choose not to read them.
We don't even know that they exist.
Right.
A lot of the time.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah.
And also what happens is I think people get too attached to the handbook, to the words, to the dogma, right? And they don't look at them as what they are, which is philosophies and metaphors.
Yeah. And also, as you pointed out earlier, as human beings, when we're stuck in our duality world and we want to win and it's all about competition and quid pro quo, then as humans, we take this beautiful thing and we turn it in, we commoditize it and we turn it into a thing that's mine and you have to pay for it. And it's right.
Well, what we do is we find magic and then we make it a business.
Yeah.
And somehow there's a pastor at a super church making $55 million a year flying a helicopter. You know, it's like it's right in your face too, and it's very strange. I don't get it. I'd love to talk to one of them. I don't get it though. I don't get the need for that or the want for that. But
yeah, but it's, you know, we're all at different phases in our evolution, and we're all suffering. And, you know, part of the journey of the suffering is to try to attach to anything that will alleviate your suffering without understanding that you have to alleviate your own suffering. You keep looking for it out there.
It's an inside out job.
Yeah.
Well, joy is an inside out job.
Yeah.
I've always said that happiness is an outside in job, right? You can go get a nice meal. It's going to make you happy. Go buy a new house, make you happy.
Yep.
Buy a new car, make you happy. That can all be taken away.
Yep.
Joy is cultivated.
Yeah. Joy
is an inside job. That's about self-care. That's about, am I meditating? That's about, am I looking inward? That's about what's the dialogue between the big me and the little me?
Yeah.
What does that sound like?
Yeah.
Does it sound like have to, should, supposed to, try? Or because there's an implied or else there.
Yeah.
Which means you're living in fear.
Right.
Or else means fear.
Yeah.
Or are you living in a world where it's, okay, well, what do I want to create my world to be so that?
Yeah.
You know, so replacing the or else with the so that, it simply changes the focus from what am I preventing to what am I building?
Yeah.
There's a big difference in how you're looking at the world.
A huge difference entirely.
Is life happening to me or am I creating my life?
Yeah. Or am I in co-creation with life?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Am I a participant?
Right.
You know, am I reacting is what I'm saying.
Well, it's interesting because this is so funny that you're bringing this up, because just like yesterday, I want to say, I was like, what is the definition of joy? And I just started looking around, as one does, you know, on the internet, and feeling into myself. And one of the things that I came across that was so interesting was that one of the definitions of joy, and it was making a similar point, like happiness is a surface thing,
Mhm.
and joy is a deep held within, and that when you're in joy, you're able to receive the lessons and the gifts
Mhm.
from the challenges.
Mhm.
Is one of the definitions.
Mhm. I always said it's I forgot how I put it. It was good too. It was about the icing in the cake. It was when you were in joy, you already were the cake, and so everything was icing.
Mhm.
So it was, you already understood that, like, the gratitude that you can always find,
Mhm.
it's always available to you.
Always.
It's always available to you to find magic. I can find 150 things in this room that are magical.
Mhm.
It's always there,
Mhm.
and you have a choice. But it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what room it is. It doesn't matter what your socioeconomic thing is. I talked to a dude who became enlightened in prison.
Yeah. Right. Right.
You know, it's there, and
Right.
it's choice.
Because the biggest prison that we inhabit is
Of course,
our mind.
You know, hell's not a place with a devil and fire. It's a state of consciousness.
Yeah.
And you live in it.
Yeah, and my father has this great quote where he said, "It is perspective alone that will solve your problems."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing, because I when I work with people, a lot of people, well, a good number of people, see their life through a microscope.
Yep.
And, you know, if you took a painting and you looked at it through a microscope,
Mm-hmm.
right, you would see disheveled, messy. What the hell is that little blip right there? Why is that hole right there? What's good? What's the problem? What's the problem? Okay, then now you see it with naked eye.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you see a painting, and it's a beautiful painting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now take a look with a telescope.
Mm-hmm.
It's a painting inside of a house, inside of on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
not that important.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, why are we taking shit so seriously?
I mean, that's the magic. So this is the thing that I'm loving right now, is that, like, those high vibrations, there's so much laughter
Mm-hmm.
in those high vibrations.
Mhm.
And the high vibrations all rotate around joy and
Mm-hmm.
innocence, and, you know, like, these things that we can think of in our human brains in particular ways. But it's like, yeah, no, like, all of the high vibration is sitting back, just like laughing at how serious we're taking everything.
Well, there's a I could be getting this completely wrong, because I'm really bad at remembering specifics, but there's something called Leela. Have you heard of Leela?
Mm-mm.
So Leela is a Vedic term used for people who figure out that none of this is real, and they're laughing at how seriously everybody's taking it. So they just walk around kind of giggling all the time.
Mm.
And they're in that state of Leela. and so you'll see like enlightened people, like gurus.
Yeah.
And they're always just kind of a little bit chuckling.
Yeah.
Like Sadhguru.
Yeah.
He's always like,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Because he's laughing at that none of this is real. That this is just an experience of consciousness.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not to make light of anyone's suffering, because
Not at all.
people are suffering intensely.
Not at all.
But it's to say that as you move through your suffering in a way, as you pull back and create that space between you and your suffering and start to be able to shift your perspective, you start to realize like, oh, what the hell was I freaking out about?
Mhm.
You know,
And it's it's a moment.
it's a moment. Yeah.
You know, this too shall pass is a real thing. That doesn't get coined for no reason.
Right.
The moments of exhilaration are going to pass. The moments of depression are going to pass.
Yeah.
And I've always said that when the tides are low is when the minerals show themselves.
Mhm.
So when it gets hard is when you dig in, and you don't move into fear. You move into exploration. Okay, well, what's happening here?
Yeah.
What am I looking at here?
Yeah.
And then when the tide comes up, you reap the rewards. It's beautiful.
Right. It's like, I mean, this is sort of the secret, which is that your liberation is held in your suffering. If you explore your suffering deeply, you will ultimately
Absolutely.
discover your liberation.
And I think the key to exploring your suffering is to do it without opinion.
100%. I mean, that's one of the things my dad talked about all the time. You can't be for or against. You can't be this is good and this is bad.
Right.
You just have to, life is not good or bad. It's just life.
Yeah.
It's just the experience.
Yeah.
And it's just to find your way to how do I feel good within this experience?
Yeah. Opinions are prisons.
Yeah.
It's weird to say. So a judgment is just an amplified opinion, really.
Yeah.
And opinions are prisons, because if I think that door is ugly, there's no room for any other possibility.
Right.
We're done here.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I heard someone say that the difference between a belief and a truth is that if you can change your mind about the belief, then it's not true. Right?
Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
There are all these people in the world hating other people for their life choices or their skin color or their da-da-da. But if they just were able to shift the perspective and change their mind, suddenly that would not be true anymore.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, the world's in a really wonky place right now.
Yeah.
I mean, objectively, and there's no such thing as an objective reality. So as objective as I can be, because it's being seen through my eyes,
right?
We're probably in the scariest time in the history of the world.
One of them. There's been six, what are they called? 6 catastrophe events where the earth has.
Oh, cataclysms.
Cataclysms, yeah. So yeah, we're
close.
We're getting close to one of them.
Pretty close. There's a lot of people poking a lot of bears. A lot of bears are getting poked.
Yeah.
And what is crazy about all of this is that it's based on people's opinions.
Yeah, totally.
None of it's real. None of it's factual.
Yeah.
It's my opinion of what you're doing, my opinion of what you believe. And it's not like, okay, but just out of curiosity, what if you had a different opinion?
Well, right. Yeah. And it's motivated by people's fears.
Well, most of Western culture is motivated by fear.
I would say most of humanity is, right? Like it's part of the human condition to be driven by our wounds, our core wounds.
Yeah. And I mean, you can see it manifest in, in the way buildings are built. You can see it manifest in really everything.
Yeah.
Is that things are built in prevention.
Mm-hmm.
But then you drive down the street and you see a temple.
Mhm.
I've always said if you want to know the difference between prevention and creation,
Mhm.
you would look at a building in like the city of industry,
Mhm.
and you would see that it's square and it's ugly and it's exactly the size it absolutely needs to be the most efficient, so that we meet that bottom line, or else, you know,
Mm.
or else.
Mhm.
Then you go to India and you look at a Hindu temple.
Mhm.
You think they gave a shit?
They did give a shit about different things.
Right. You think they gave a shit about
but not productivity and bottom line.
but like you can build, but again, because everything's energy, right? You can build your life to be a building in the city of industry, or you can build your life to be a temple, and that is a choice. Do I want to live in prevention, or do I want to live in creation?
Yeah. And creation, to me, what's beautiful about creation is that, and creating, and all of us are creative because we are all creating our lives every day, is that as humans who are in suffering, we tend to be facing in the wrong direction. We're looking behind. We're looking in the past. When we create, we're taking what's present in our environment and making something new, which is forward.
It's present forward.
Yeah,
it's present forward, because if you get into hope, you're flirting with anxiety.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, sure.
Like there's different kinds of hope.
Mhm.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Right. I hope this is going to happen. Flirts with the anxiety of it not happening.
Yeah.
It's like the little coin that's flipping in front of you, and there's a little coin flipping in back of you, and the one in back of you is nostalgia and depression. Right. And the one in front of you is anxiety and hope. Or hope and anxiety. And it really is such a reminder to get a practice to stay present.
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not hard to do. It's hard to remember to do.
I was literally just talking to someone about this morning. I was like, being present, it's the easiest thing in the world, but it's also in some ways like the hardest thing to, as you say, remember or hold on to. Like you have a thought, you have a feeling, and all of a sudden you're like over here somewhere, and then you're
Well,
present anymore.
I think we as a people have somehow come to the place where we actually think our thoughts are us.
Yeah. And our feelings.
And our feeling, right? They forgot that we're creating the thought. The thought is actually being created by you. It's not creating you. It's not the other way around.
Right.
And we've become a victim of a supercomputer, which is also, by the way, the big fear that everybody has now with AI, is that we're going to become the victim of a supercomputer. You know, and I don't know enough about that to speak on it, but it's all being created out of fear.
Yeah.
And it's all being created out of a lack of presence. Everybody thinks that no one's ever lived in tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, but so this is what I say. Because people fear the unknown, right? This is what we're talking about. AI, we don't know it, right? We don't know what it is. We don't know what's going to do to our culture. So people are afraid of it. People are afraid of the unknown in lots of ways. What if I, make this choice and I move over here? What's going to happen? I don't know. But this is what I always say, is that everything that you think that you want for yourself and for your life exists in the unknown. Because if you had it already, you would know it. And it would be known to you.
Sure.
Right. And so it's like this fear of change, this fear of the unknown is such an interesting thing to me, because I'm like, yeah, but everything you want to know, everything you want to create for yourself, for your life. I wish I had, this house, or I wish I had a thriving business, or I wish I could feel more at peace within part, are things you don't currently have.
Well, but I don't know that I see a lot of people, I take in a lot of people that don't even realize that they're creating their life.
Yeah, sure.
They're literally just ping pong.
Yeah,
They're like in a pinball, boing, boing, just going where it hits me, and they don't realize that like there's an unconscious choice that it is a choice that's happening.
Yeah.
They don't see that.
Yeah, sure. Of course. Yeah, definitely.
And I'm not here to save anyone, I think because really no one's coming to save you, and that the goal here is for you to recognize. I think that's the first step is always to just recognize that it's happening. I have to pee again.
I can pause this. Should I? I think so. It says there's a pause button.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
We're back. Well, let me ask you a question, because we were having a long conversation, and I'm open to the conversation going everywhere and anywhere. But why did you start this podcast, and why is it called what it's called?
Oh my goodness. Well, I started the podcast because I want to talk to people, to interesting people who are doing things in the world that can make an impact.
Okay.
It's all about impact. It's all about opening up ideas, opening up a conversation. Nobody has all the answers, right? I want the questions. I want to go from question to question and see where it takes me, and see how many people can learn and grow and build a community. I'm really big in community,
Okay.
which about the time we met became very important to me. And it's important to me. If I reach one person, and they hear something that hits that thing, that inspires them to do that thing, that inspires that thing, done. I won.
Yeah.
For me, it's only about impact and scope of impact.
Yeah.
That's all. That's my motivation for anything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that wasn't always the case.
Sure.
Money and status was my driving force for, the first, how old am I? 47. So probably 38 years of my life.
Yeah.
And that's because that was what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was a lawyer. You don't be a lawyer because he was a corporate lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good one, but it was, and my mom didn't really do anything, but she was very, very caught up in keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that she recognized it. I think it was just wired into her because her mom, was an immigrant, and she just wanted to have, I totally see, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not to shame where she was at.
Totally.
And her being there opened the door for me to go back the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or do it now is because it's twofold, right? I have been talking about doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was grappling with, I don't think it's fear, but there's uncertainty. And most things I do, I'm certain of what's going to happen before I do it. And also, I don't have a lot of know-how. And what's unbelievable is that I started this, and I had a mutual friend, Matt. He's like, I'll produce it. And then Osti's like, yeah, I'll help. And there's just it was just the warmth that brings to me, that these people believe in me. I mean, it really hits hard, because growing up, it took me a long time to believe in myself.
Yeah.
I didn't believe in myself until.
Well, you still are carrying some small limiting beliefs, right?
Oh, sure.
Because you're just starting this podcast now. And prior to that, you were like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know.
For
right?
sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I feel the same.
For sure.
I'm often shocked when somebody wants to just show up and do something for me or help me with something. I'm like, you do? Why?
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It takes getting used to, but I think once it takes getting used to, but I also don't want to get used to it.
Yeah,
That what feels better than being pleasantly surprised?
I love it.
The greatest gift in the world.
Yeah.
And so it's opened up the avenues of for me of receiving. I've always been a giver. I've always been, attending to and being able to have people help me because I don't know a damn thing about computers. I don't know a damn thing about how to do and so I think it's been really important for me to be held because I'm always everybody's container.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I can be unsupportable
Mm-hmm.
at times.
Mm-hmm.
And being forced into a role of being supported is a challenge that I'm happily accepting.
Good.
And I'm not used to it. And so I'm being very conscious of, Matt is the most on point person. I mean, he's to the minute and it triggers me.
Interesting.
But that's my work.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, it triggers me, but I want it.
Mm-hmm.
He's doing this for me. He's not doing this to me. He's doing this for me.
Yeah.
And so that's my growing edge is to be more supportable in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a big part of what I'm learning.
Mm-hmm.
The letters of the name of the show is a reference to Odin, and I have a very special relationship with Norse mythology.
Yes, you do.
Over time. Over time, I think more will come out, but
yeah.
It's again in not taking anything all that seriously, right?
Mm-hmm.
The idea, and I've met deities in journey space a lot. And I grew up Jewish in Los Angeles. I mean, I'm a Jewish kid from LA. Or had Jewish Irish kid from LA. And then, and so that's my identity. But whatever you identify as is also a prison.
It's limiting.
You're stuck.
Limiting
You're stuck there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, then this whole fucking Norse thing happens.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, what's happening here?
Yeah.
So I think it's a wink at don't be so sure.
Totally. I had a similar, I think I've told you about it, a similar thing, not as profound as yours. But I had this whole, it wasn't in journey space. It was in an entirely other space, but where I was in a meditation and I had this whole vision of something I didn't understand. And as I came to understand it, it revealed itself to be like Aztec Mayan Toltec wisdom. And I was like, I mean, what does that have to do with me? It doesn't have to do anything with me,
right.
But it does have to do with my soul.
Yeah, because your soul's not Chinese.
Yeah, no. Right. Yeah. My soul isn't even human.
No.
Yeah. Right.
It's not Chinese.
Yeah.
My soul's not Jewish.
Yeah.
My soul's not white. My soul's not anything.
Well, or it's all of it. right?
Right. Any and all.
Any and all. Yeah.
Right. All things are possible.
Yeah.
But that was the reason.
Okay.
That was the reason. It was something that kind of had to happen. I at the end of a journey one night, I was sitting, I don't remember who I was with. And we were in the giggle part of the night where everybody's just being an idiot. And I was like, yeah, I'm the irritated Buddha. And that was actually what it was originally going to be, was the irritated Buddha. Because I am very triggered by small noises, like chewing. Like I have that, whatever that thing is.
My daughter hates the sound of chewing.
Yeah, whatever that thing is, I have it. So I appear irritated, and then I'm also me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
So what's coming up for you? What's happening?
Just generally in my life
Yeah.
right now, I am in a place where I'm really trying to move to the next level of my creativity, of my consciousness, of my life. I'm looking at, reviewing, and attempting to adjust and let go and release a lot of old patterns, of old habits, of trying to listen very deeply to the call of my heart, to the desire of my soul, and live into that.
Wow. All right. I'll take it.
That's all. And
I was like, are you making another TV show? What's that?
yeah. Well, but that's part of it, right? So like in May, I'm going on a writer's retreat because I'm writing a novel.
Okay.
I'm going to try to write a novel.
It's not try. You're gonna write a novel. There's no trying in life.
Yeah. I just launched a new podcast, which is of my own making. It has nothing to do with Bruce Lee, although
the thing is that in this manifestation of consciousness, you're Bruce Lee's daughter.
That is true. Bruce Lee is not in the title. Well, except it's called A Little Leeway. but I'm a Lee.
You're Lee. You're Lee.
And that
you're the only Lee.
Yeah. I mean, I have a daughter, but
she's not. She's
her middle name is Lee.
Right.
So,
but you're the Lee.
I'm the Lee.
you're the living Lee.
Yeah, and so you know what's funny is that the podcast is called A Little Leeway. It's super short form. It's like 2-minute to 5-minute episodes. And I started doing it because I have these little thoughts, little perception shifts, like we were talking about before, that occur to me that I just want to share because I'm on the same mission as you. I'm like, if something I say could like have somebody go like, oh, and open them up in some way, I'm like, excellent, take it, it's yours.
Yeah.
And so I was trying to think of what to call the podcast. And I've had a company for decades called Leeway Media. It's my own company. It's not forward facing. It's like the stuff that I do all of my art creative work through. And I named it that because Leeway, I'm a Lee, it's my way. Leeway is a word, blah, blah, blah. But then I started thinking to myself, well, what does leeway really mean? What does it mean? And I looked at the definition, and it's a small amount of freedom in which to be able to move and make a change. And I was like, that's the name.
That's incredible.
Right? Like I just had never, what leeway means, but then you really sit with it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, exactly. That's what we all need. Just a little leeway, just a little space to be able to make that choice.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. The thing that most of us are seeking is space.
Yeah.
But and what we forget is that because we're the creator, we can create space.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody says to me, I hear it all the time, oh, I don't have time for that. Really? Do you not have time for that?
Yeah.
Or are you prioritizing some other thing in front of that? Because let me tell you this, if your daughter was being taken to the hospital, would you have time to go to the hospital?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
you can't, to say I don't have time is to say I'm not actually in control of my priorities.
Right. It's saying that's not a priority.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's important because people often are looking to control.
Oh, yeah, all the time, which is, hilarious that we think that we can somehow control.
Fucking ridiculous. It's the most ridiculous. If you look at it objectively, it's the dumbest. You're on a rock. Like, it's the dumbest thing you could ever, right?
Yeah.
Maybe possibly hope to contain.
Yeah. I mean, look, you can make choices, you can do things, and that gives you the illusion of control, but then something shifts, something happens, and it just all.
I mean, I look at it like hitting a golf ball.
Yeah.
You can make a perfect swing.
Yeah.
The rest is up to whatever happens.
Right.
Yeah.
Hit
a sprinkler head.
The wind blows.
Right.
Yeah. The apple flies by.
It's all there. All you work on is the swing.
Yeah.
The rest of it will take care of itself.
And part of that is, and this is the thing I've been really trying to practice, is slowing the fuck down. Take a pause. You know what I mean? Like, you can't make a conscious choice if you don't just slow down for a minute.
Yeah.
And it's funny because these last few months, I have just been going. I've been traveling a ton. I've had all these invitations. I've been saying yes to everything. And it's been a great experience because I get to understand the consequence of my choices to say yes and go that fast and that hard all the time.
Right.
And that has looked like getting sick, and that has looked like feeling overwhelmed, and that, like, that has felt like being so tired and not being able then to give the time to the things I really want.
Right.
And it's like, have some discernment. Pause for a minute. Is this really how you want your life to be? Is this it?
Yeah.
And, in that choice, just like you're saying, you have to let something go. I have to say no. So to some of the invitations and some of the things, if I want to have the space and be able to prioritize the things that are really meaningful to me.
Well, having a really strong no, like really owning your no, it allows for your yes to matter so much more.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows that I have a hard no. And so if I say yes, I mean it.
Yeah.
But I know people that are like, yeah, sure. And they come and they're half-assed. If I come, I'm coming.
Yeah.
And I've always seen that as a good way to show up to life. It's like, if I don't want to be there, just don't go. Don't go out of guilt.
Yeah, right.
You're
nobody wants the guilty version of you at their thing.
In life, you're going to piss someone off always. So
Always.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, if you're in a world where you're trying to please people, the only person that's going to get pleased is no one.
Right. Yeah. And your authentic self is not going to show up anywhere.
Ever.
Yeah.
And then you got to put on a shtick, and then now I have to get through the shtick. And
you might not even know what your authentic self is, because your authentic self is invested in everyone else.
Right. And there's like 3 different layers that you're trying to get through. I mean, a lot of my work as a coach has been around unraveling people's shtick.
Yeah.
Because I think they forget that they're doing. They forget that it's a persona and it's not the real them.
Yeah.
And it's something that's really valuable for people is to look at the protections. and not in judgment.
No, those protections are there for a reason.
They got me here,
Yeah,
not in judgment.
totally.
Are they serving me still?
Mhm.
Or is this just habit?
Well, that's the thing about the patterns, right? We all get into these habits and patterns, and they do serve us, but they will never serve us forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like why people get upset at the government. You know, they like COVID comes and then they get all these, but they never take them back.
Yeah.
They all these clamps come down on us, but they never take them back.
Right.
You have agency to take them back. They don't need to be forever, and you don't want them to be forever.
You don't want them to be forever because a pattern or a habit will always become constricting at some point. Because you are a changing and evolving human being, and even if you're not changing and evolving, everything around you is changing and evolving.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, you've got to break the pattern.
Right.
Yeah, in order to stay present to life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the idea of always be working on your craft. It doesn't mean get stuck in minutia. It means be looking at perspective.
Yeah.
Be looking up and down. Keep eyes on it.
Yeah.
See it. You don't have to watch it. Nobody wants to be watched, but you want to be seen. So you want to see everything that's happening in what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
And be willing to adjust. This is that supportability thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody's perfect. Nobody's ever gonna be perfect.
Right.
That's the beauty of the thing. The totality of humanity is consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That could be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
In its totality. But that's about it.
Well, I think the thing is we just all have to give ourselves a little grace and compassion and gentleness around the truth that it is challenging to shift a pattern or a habit.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
It's ingrained. It's familiar.
Mm-hmm.
You are comfortable with it.
You're going to slip.
Yeah. You're going to go back to it again and again until you finally get it and it becomes second nature. And then that's your new habit or pattern, right?
And then guess what?
Yeah, exactly.
And then it might, but being malleable is the only way, like your dad said, right? Be like water.
Exactly. Yeah. Be the formless form.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shape yourself to whatever is happening in the present moment.
Right. While still maintaining yourself.
Yeah. While still maintaining the borders of your essence.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. On the just like to-do list of what I'm doing, I do many, many things. I have a number of film and TV projects I'm creating and producing and working on. I created an animated TV show.
Did you?
Yes, I did. That I'm working on. Yeah.
You are the most doingest person I know. So you have more projects than any person I've ever met.
I do, because I love it, and I don't. It's in my nature to take on anything and everything that I find interesting, until I either create it fully or decide it's no longer of use. From big to small, I've just gotten on. So there was this great gluten-free bakery in LA called Bread Block, and it went out of business. And everybody that's gluten-free that I know was like, oh, we no longer have great gluten-free bread. And I was like, well, they made good gluten-free bread. Must be makeable. So I have now learned how to make artisanal, beautiful gluten-free bread myself.
Send that over, because I got the problem.
Oh, do you?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'll give you a small piece. It's not my best one, but I have a little bit left. I'll give to you to take. Oh, it's not that hard once you just figure out how. That's the thing. And we all need help.
Yes.
And support.
Yes.
I can't do any of this stuff on my own.
No.
I mean, there are parts I do on my own, but then somebody's got to publish the book. Somebody's got to produce the podcast. Somebody's got to help me, figure something out. I had to download recipes off the internet and try a bunch of things and fail at making bread.
Of course.
In order to know how to make it,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So I just know about myself that I love to be creative.
Mm.
And and whether that's like doing little silly crafting projects
Mhm.
or writing books and getting them published or creating a TV show or whatever it is, And so, when we were last together in the space, I came up with an idea for a YouTube show, short form YouTube show, and I'm workshopping it this Sunday because I want to figure it out. I want to figure out what it is exactly, and I want to try to create it.
I mean, look, you're clearly a channel. And I think we're all channels.
Yeah.
But I think that what I've seen is that you're a willing channel.
Mm-hmm.
Is that I've always said that one of the pathways to enlightenment is to be a fan of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you don't like it, are you a fan of what it's in?
Yeah.
So if you don't like a painting, but are you a fan of paint? Are you a fan of art?
Yeah.
Right. So you're always looking at it from those eyes.
Mm-hmm.
You're that.
Mm.
I see that in you. Like you're always like, huh, okay. I'll take a step back. Okay. There. I like it there.
Yeah, that's so funny you say that because we're sitting here in my house right now and I'm still getting settled. And I will literally like stick a chair somewhere and then I'll be like, that's good. And then I'll stand back and I'll be like, no. And I'll go and I'll just like move it over here. And then I'll be like, I'm going to look at it from that angle. I don't like it from this angle. And then I'm like, until I figure out exactly where it goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that about you. I think, and it's wild to see because I've seen the evolution of you.
Yeah.
From a time when, you were as stuck maybe as you've ever been.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I'm proud of you too.
Yeah.
We were just laughing about this.
It's ridiculous.
How far we've come.
Unrecognizable.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is fun.
This is super fun. I feel like, podcast, no podcast. I feel like I have 1,000 things I want to keep talking to you about.
Let's go. I got time. What time is it?
It's 4.
I got about half an hour. Let's go.
I don't know if there are things that you, I want to know about, you, which, and I don't know if there are things you want to share on the podcast or not on the podcast. But
you can ask whatever you want.
So where you are right now
Mhm.
with your channel
Mm.
and what you're able to channel, do you have a thought about where that goes next?
I don't. It happened very suddenly. It felt like it was happening to me.
Yeah.
It's evolved into happening for me.
Yeah.
It's become a place where I see people. I've always had a gift of sight, but in that space I really can see.
Mm-hmm.
But I've learned to not have any ideas of where it's going.
Mm.
Just be with it where it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's taken me some fucking wild places.
Yeah.
I've gone through 9. You were there for 1. I've gone through 9 actual experiences of dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard people talk about psychedelic ego death. This is different.
Mm.
Like I actually die.
Mm.
It's not I lose myself or I forget myself. I actually die.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of, I get a ton when I go to the other side. And I know it sounds crazy. It all sounds nuts. And you've been there. It's not, it's happening. It's
Yeah,
not,
sure. Mm-hmm.
But it's traumatic
Mm-hmm.
and it takes a toll.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's wounds
Mm-hmm.
from it.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I have zero, like the good thing is I have zero fear of death.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But suffering is always there.
I always say that. I'm like, people don't actually fear death, they fear suffering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. Because death, I think life, I've always seen life, not always, but since I've been on this path, life is the interval. Life is the blip. Death is the constant. That's kind of the way I see it.
Yeah. I mean, life and death are so intimately and intricately bound to one another.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess there are people who fear death who don't have a construct for the soul and and consciousness and all of that.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think it would be hard to deny reincarnation, obviously. For me, what was crazy is when that happened, when I started to have things happen that were from here, was the shattering of the idea that this was all real. Because you can read in a text that the Hindus always said that this is a play. Like, this is God. This is the play that God is playing out.
It's the Earth School.
Yeah, but you don't really believe it.
Yeah.
Then some shit like this happens to me.
And you're like, okay,
fine, I get it. The thing is that it wasn't just me having the experience. Because if it was just me having the experience, I could just be nuts.
Right. Sure.
But I could bring you into my experience, and you're like, "Oh, fucking hell, that's not okay."
Yeah. But it makes you think a little bit about people who people view as severely mentally ill, and what is the experience that they are having.
I am fascinated
by
that. I am fascinated by what channel is being blocked by the fear that a schizophrenic's channel is actually trying to
attach to. Yeah.
Right? Because I've heard that, like, in India or something, if you have a psychotic break, they actually praise you so you don't go into fear. And so they let it go through you.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I had an ego death, I was so terrified. I was begging and screaming and crying. And I mean, it was so, it was awful. And I sat with Patrick McGrand. Do you know him? I sat with Patrick, and one night we were in ceremony at my house, and he said, "Look, if you're going to die, just die.
Yeah.
And just see what happens."
Yeah.
And so for the next 7 times, that's kind of what I did. It was deeply uncomfortable, and I would go through it, and then what's funny is that you and I had that dinner, and you said, "Hey, I had some kind of prophecy that you're going to have to die 9 times." And then scheduling somehow made it, after 5 years, we end up in a ceremony together. Right. And then I'm going through this pretty, I mean, it was pretty intense by all accounts.
Yeah. Totally.
like ego death.
Mhm.
And then you, because it's you of all the people in the world, and you tapped me on the shoulder and you said, hey, why don't you think about tapping into that warrior in you?
Mhm.
Tap into that guy
Mhm.
and stand up.
Mhm.
And sure enough, I mean, it wasn't in English,
Mhm.
but you know, in that moment, and it's happened once since, I stood for love. I stood for family. I stood for being here. I said, you know, and I'm in some broken old Norse screaming, you know, let me live or take me to Valhalla, you
Mhm.
know, and that was as I'm like swimming in the ground in my puke. And
But let me go back to something you said that I think is really important.
Hmm.
You said, I try to just be with it without assigning any extra meaning to it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think that that is such an important thing, period, for everyone. Because as humans, we attempt to make meaning out of everything, and it shapes, our experience so greatly and creates all this opinion and all this belief. And it's our attempt at controlling the narrative, which I fully understand. But the more that we can just let go of our need to make everything mean something,
Absolutely.
and just be in the experience, be present, as we were talking about, our lives can then just expand and be so much more full and so much more free.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that separates humans from other animals is that we can make meaning,
Yes.
right? And so, you know, we can make a birthday mean something. We can make fucking waffle day mean something. We can make, you know, you look at all the hashtags on social media. Yeah, everything means something.
Mhm.
But you know, everything means something also creates expectation.
Mhm.
And with expectation comes not meeting expectation. There's no agreement there.
Yeah.
No one's on the other end saying, "Hey, I'm going to meet you at Waffle Day." You know?
Yeah.
And so if you're living your life expecting anything
Mhm.
from people,
Mhm.
you're going to get let down. You're going to get met every now and then,
Yeah, sure.
but more times than not,
Mhm.
you're going to get let down, and then you're going to become cynical.
Mhm.
So what if you expect nothing? What if you just are present,
Mhm.
right? And in a good way.
Right. Mhm.
I come to you in a good way.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that works.
Yeah. Totally.
That for me, and by the way, my relationship with that channel, as it's become more integrated, because it was terrifying when it
Yeah.
started. And one day I'll tell the whole story, but it was terrifying when it started.
Mhm.
I mean, you were there. Now it's like laughy and jokey, and you know,
Yeah.
this old man is just like happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to when we can be together again, because I'm like, wow, I have questions.
Yeah, bring questions. Yeah, it's you know what's funny is in all the time that I've gone into that channel, only one person has ever asked questions.
Yeah. I think because it's so jarring. I mean, not jarring, but like
It's like, okay,
you're like, what is happening? It's and then you kind of lose all sense of your own
yeah, it
intellect.
scrambles your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you saw what happened to Austin.
Yeah.
Just went and threw up immediately.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, now that I've had that experience,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah. Yeah. We're doing one at my house in June. So
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, let me know. Hopefully it'll work out.
yeah, hopefully you're in town, not
I'm really trying
where in the
hard.
world is Shannon Lee.
I know. I'm really trying hard to travel less this summer. or if I do travel, to have it be more for pleasure than for business.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
That's the aim.
Good. All right, kid.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
This is so fun. We're definitely doing this again.
Great.
This is awesome.
It's easy. We live so close to each other now. Let's do it.
All right. I love you.